and we have plenty of time to head out there for the fair. We're starting something new, a new series, and we're going to look at what it means to be Christian, kind of everything that entails. That's kind of like what we're going to kind of look at, because it's very crucial. And as I get into it here in a little bit, you're going to notice how it's probably something you don't think about that often, even though it's very, I don't know, just like common sense. But at the same time, you probably don't really dive into it that much. But let me ask you guys a question, and just think about this. What name are you known by? Like, think about it. So, I mean, it seems like a common question, but what name are you known by? And there's probably lots of them. That, I mean, if you're lucky to go through life, I think you might be lucky, to not have a nickname, great. I remember when I was a kid, and people had nicknames and stuff. I was like, I don't want a nickname, but nickname do you call Adam? Addy? I don't know, whatever. You can't really do all that. That's kind of weird, So I felt left out. I felt left out, not having a nickname or a name shortened from your full name type of thing, right? Tyler, Ty, whatever, But as I got older, and it wasn't until, I don't know, really it was John and Dan and all them that kind of did this, but it was also a little bit of mixture of that from school. But when I was in junior high and stuff like that, I was sort of getting called Farnsey. Last name Farnsworth, been called Farnsey. Now, people from school would call me Farns. Sometimes shorten it. Eric Eaton calls me Farnsey or Farns all the time. That was pretty much that kind of it became my nickname, so to speak. But you think about a lot of people have several nicknames, 7 of them or whatever. And a lot of times they have funny stories behind them, right? Usually, sometimes you get a nickname because they did something stupid, and you're stuck with a new name, or whatever it might be, just whatever the interesting situation might be. But here's some famous nicknames. I want to see if you guys kind of recognize them. The Babe. What's his name? See? No. It's called the Babe. It's George Herman Ruth. That's what you call it. That's what he's well known by, though. But see, that's the name he's known by. See? He could go around town and call it, if no one recognized his face, he can call it and say, "Oh, my name's George," and not think anything about it. But he says, "Oh, my name's Babe Ruth," and they click, Then Alexander the Great, added the great to it. The Vlad the Impaler, that kind of implies what his situation brought upon that nickname, right? The King. Who's the King? No. Yeah. Elvis. Elvis Presley. Hey, oh, you did? Here, William the Conqueror. Obviously, there's a situation there that brought upon that name. Bloody Mary. Queen Mary. Honest Abe. So there's a lot, and if you think about it, okay, just looking at these names, other than maybe Babe Ruth. I don't know how that really fits, but you can kind of tell a lot about a person by that nickname, right? Huh? So, Honest Abe, Abraham Lincoln, obviously he must be honest, because Honest Abe. So sometimes the nickname can tell a lot about that person. So it's kind of what are you known by? What name are you known by? And obviously you want to be known by a good name, not nothing. You don't want to be known by something bad or embarrassing, right? But even if it was that you had a nickname that seemed embarrassing, obviously that's highlighting something about you, something, a situation, or a circumstance that happened. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at being this title, what it means to be called a Christian, and what a Christian life is supposed to be. Because it seems like common sense, but at the same time, it's something that we probably don't look at that close. Because we look at this word, and you probably think one thing, but really maybe it means something more than that. And not only a title or a name, but it's a way of life. It's things that encompass you that you're supposed to be doing or following to bring about this way of life. Because Christian may not be a term you use very often, or if you do use it, you refer to a group of people, maybe not necessarily an individual, right? Or yourself. So here's a question you ask yourself: do you call yourself a Christian? And that question alone can have many different types of implications. But if we're being honest, probably don't use that term or hear it very often. You talk about somebody going to church or to a youth group, but you don't really use it, oh, yeah, they're a Christian. Oh, they're a Christian. Oh, I'm a Christian. That group of people are Christians. So if you start off looking at this word, what does being a Christian mean? What does it mean? What does the term Christian mean? Why? This is where we get the beginning of this phrase or this name. Why did the disciples start being known by this name? These are questions we're going to look at. But here's a couple of scriptures that I got of kind of where this started. If you look at Acts chapter 11, 26, it says, "And when he found them, he brought them into Antioch. So for a whole year, Barnabas and Saul met with the church and taught great numbers of people. The disciples were called Christians first at Antioch." So here's where these disciples, close followers of Christ, were called, they were labeled, they were named Christians. So there's one sighting of this term. Another scripture, Acts 26:28 says, and then Agrippa said to Paul, "Do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian?" So this is King Agrippa. They're conversing with Paul, and Paul's obviously telling them a testimony, telling them a story, telling them about Jesus. And Agrippa is like, "Do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian? You can convert me, make me become a Christian?" Again, it's a name used for these group of people. 1 Peter 4:16 says, "However, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed, but praise God that you bear that name." That name. So there's another instance of that. You see, the disciples were known as Christians because they were followers of Jesus, the Christ. Obviously, it's common sense. It's highlighted. You see it in that word, in that name. Being called a Christian was a nickname for those who claimed to follow Jesus. Now, the word Christ is a title, or it could even be known as a nickname, and it means Messiah. Probably heard this before. The Anointed One. Christ is not his real last name. This is where we lost Briar. he did not realize that Christ was not an actual last name. So, but it's a term that was given to Jesus as a way to say that he is the Messiah. Because if you think about, especially back then, a lot of people didn't have like last names like Smith or whatever, right? It was always a name, and then typically son of this person, or Jesus of Nazareth. That's just how they identify people. Because there's a lot of people named Jesus, a lot of people named Bob. Which Bob are you talking about? Bob of Cutler, Bob of Parkersburg, Bob of, so you would just, the area that they're from, or maybe they're the son of, different cultures in different ways. Like I said, they didn't have last names like Farnsworth or Smith or Heft or whatever else. So it was a way that they claimed Jesus as a way to identify him as Messiah, the chosen one by God. Of course, Jesus itself means Savior. So while Jesus' followers commonly became known as Christians, this nickname was not the first name given to them. So as a group of people, as Christ followers, they were known or associated with another title, another name. The first name that was given to the disciples after the resurrection and ascension and Pentecost was followers of the way. Sounds very cultish, but it wasn't. People kind of looked at it that way, but it wasn't. Because Paul uses this term, this designation, one time when he's on trial. In Acts 24, it says this. It says, however, I admit, this is when Paul's on trial. And he uses this word. He says, I admit that I worship the God of our ancestors as a follower of the way, which they call a sect or a cult. I believe everything that is in accordance with the law and that is written in the prophets. So the term the way comes from Jesus' own word. When Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. See, so this comes straight from Jesus' own words that he is the way. So followers of the way, followers of Jesus. There you go. So that was one of the very first names, nicknames, terminology, whatever, designation that these disciples were known for, followers of the way. And then as we saw some of the other scriptures, Christians became more of a more predominant name being used. So you don't know exactly why the disciples started being called that. You don't know how it kind of switched and transitioned into that. But it was in Antioch, one of the centers of the spread of Christianity. They started being known as Christians. Because the word Christian means little Christ in Greek. Little Christ. So to be a Christian was to be a representation of Jesus Christ. So it's not meaning little in stature. It just means here's Jesus, and you're kind of like a mini representation. You can't be equal. You can't be just like that. We're supposed to be the example of who Jesus is. We're supposed to be a representation of him. And that's important. And we have that today. We have these similar things, right? School mascot, the Warriors, or the Eagles, right? Well, if you go there, if you're part of that, you're an Eagle, you're a Warrior, you're a Bobcat, you're a Patriot, whatever. We kind of have that same thing here. When you're part of something like that, you're that. You get kind of designated or known by that. So you become a representation of that. You represent your school. You represent your organization, whatever it is that has that. The representation of the whole is a bit what it means to be called a Christian, a Christ. We are not the Christ. We are a representation. And so we need to be known by that. In general, Christians get a bad rep. You've probably heard some of this before. You've probably heard some of this terminology before. But Christians have been blamed for all kinds of stuff over the years. Generalizations about Christians are often unfair, but sometimes Christians deserve it because of our own internal problems. And when I look at this, and if you kind of examine this, you'll understand is that the reason why Christians get such a hard hit, or they suffer, or it looks like they make such a bad rep is because of what we stand for is supposed to be good, wholesome, truth, all that. So people look at us that high, and whenever, we're still human. Whenever we have our own internal problems, whenever something bad happens, a bad decision on an individual, sometimes a small group of people, because we're on such a high pedestal, the whole world's like, oh, it's such a bigger deal. But, everybody makes tons of mistakes all the time, but it's because we are claiming to be set apart from all that when we make the same mistake as they do, we get a bad rap. We get representation. It becomes poor. So sometimes you might hear some of these statements about Christians. Christians are intolerant. Christians are judgmental. Christians are hypocritical, or they're hypocrites. So there's a reason that these things are said about Christians, and mostly because they can be true. Now, we're not all going to be lumped into these terms. We're not all going to be, okay, well, that's us. No, that's not us. But only just because a few individuals or one bad church had a falling out or something like that because of that, it creates a bad rep all across the board. Right? We're taught that if somebody makes a mistake, if they're unbelieving, they're not yet saved, they're not yet brought to Christ, they make a mistake, forgive them. Right? We don't say, oh, everyone else is just terrible because of what that one person did, right? We don't do that. Obviously, we make our poor decisions, we make mistakes, us. Just because I'm lumped in with that doesn't mean human beings, doesn't mean we're all inherently that way. But the world says that, okay, if a Christian can lie, if a Christian can cheat, on their spouse, if a Christian can steal from the church, if a Christian can make a poor mistake, they're all that way. That's what the world looks at because we all are representing the same thing, and we are proclaiming to be, in their terms, the world's terms, better than everyone. That when we make a mistake, it's the same for everybody across the board. Really, it's not. But see, that's what we are known to. Some of this can be true. Christians are known as intolerant because we do not do a good job of loving people who are different than us. We are especially intolerant of things that are different than us. So it's hard, and I find this to be true because it's hard. You guys know this. It's hard to be around your friends who aren't saved because the way they talk, the way they act, the things they do. You know it's wrong. It's hard for you to stay there with that. So we become intolerant. We get kind of, it's hard for us to love everybody if they're not a Christian. They're not on the same page as us. Which this goes against what God's trying to teach us. We need to love everybody, especially those that are different than us, because they need to know Christ. Christians are known as judgmental because we tell other people that their actions are wrong. Instead of getting to know someone and living out loud with their own actions, we tell people that they are wrong. We do what we're supposed to do by kind of help people understand what they're doing wrong. There are right and wrong ways about doing it. Some people don't do a good job. They just come out and say, you're living in sin. You're making bad decisions. You're doing terrible. You need to repent. It's very exaggerated, but that's sometimes how we can come across. And that's right, obviously. But because of a few people, that coming out or that mentality or that acting kind of gets portrayed that way, other people view it as, oh, well, you're judgmental. You think you're holier than thou, you're judgmental. And then, of course, Christians are known as hypocrites because while we can be intolerant and judgmental, there are a lot of Christians who live by a do what I say, not what I do kind of philosophy. And that's easy. I can tell you how to live, but I can't do it myself. but you got to do what I say, not what I do. People intentionally live that way, have that philosophy, but a lot of times we don't do it unintentionally. Because we don't pay attention to our actions, and we say we know what needs to be done, we know how to live, we know what to do, but we're not doing it ourselves. It's hard to do it ourselves. Or it's not as fun, or it's not exciting, or it's not as pleasurable to do that on our own. So we become hypocrites because we want you to do what I say but not what I do, and that's being hypocrite. We need to walk the walk and talk the talk. We got to do them both. We can't just do one or the other. So, so this hypocrites say one thing but do something different type of mentality. But that's what we're not. See, here's the point to all this, that if we are to take on the name of Christian, we are taking on the name and reputation of Jesus. Anything other than Jesus is not worthy of a Christian. So we're taking on this representation of Jesus. If we say, I am a Christian, then you're being a representation of Christ. So whatever you do, whatever you say, you're representing Jesus and everybody else that is claiming to be Christian as well. While Christians might have a particular reputation, what should a Christian be? What should a Christian look like? There's at least two simple and easy characteristics that I bet you. A Christian needs to be a follower of Jesus and Jesus in the flesh. So you follow Jesus, you follow his way, you follow where he leads you, and you be Jesus in the flesh. Meaning you be him here on earth. You be him walking on this earth, talking, interacting with you. I don't mean that in a blasphemous way, or, I just mean you need this as closely representation of Jesus walking on earth. So there's two simple and easy characteristics that come with being called a Christian that we can probably do. Being a Christian first means that you follow Jesus. It's been said before that there are two types of people in this world, followers and leaders. And you may be a leader or a follower in your personal life, but in your relationship with Jesus, you're always in the position of a follower. When it comes to your relationship with Jesus, you're a follower. You follow him. Now, you can take what God has put in you, turn around and become a leader to everyone else, or to some people. But in your relationship with Jesus, you're always a follower. So, being a Christian means you're a follower of him. The disciples were first followers and learners, right? They followed Jesus, they learned from him, and then when it was time, they turned around to the other people and became leaders to them. And then being a Christian also means that you're Jesus in the flesh. You're not him in reality, but your representation of Jesus. And that's kind of a heavy thing to think about. See, Jesus came to this earth to restore our relationship with God by showing everyone a new way to live. You and I are called to go into the lives of others as the very presence of Jesus. We're being called to go and be that presence to unbelievers. Because you may be the only Bible someone reads. You may be the only Jesus someone hears. You may be the only Jesus someone reads. That sounds weird to say it that way, but you might be their only access to becoming saved. Scriptures they hear, positive influence they get, you might be that. And so if you're out interacting with the world, how are you doing? How are you going about interacting? Because if I were to come up to you right now and ask you, who are you? How would you respond? You'd probably tell me your name, something about yourself, your family, different things like that. Then I'd ask you again, who are you? And you start naming characteristics. I'm a fan nerd, I'm popular, I'm an athlete, I'm whatever. You got to really think, who are you? Because here's the real point. Are you a follower of Jesus? Are you a Christian? So we're just starting in this series, what it will look like being a Christian, naming that name. But that's our point, that our first priority is a Christian claim. You got to take ownership of that. You claim it. Everything that. To be a Christian, a follower of Christ, a little Christ, you first have to claim the name Christian. No one can claim this name for you. Only you can. So that's we're going to look at that. We're going to walk through that. Claim the name of Christian. Everything that means. Being a follower of Jesus, being Jesus in the flesh. We're representing him. We're his influence. We're the biggest impact. We got to live up to that name. We got to live up to that. Father God, I thank you so much for this morning, Lord. I thank you for just your word, God. And Lord, I pray that we allow it to soak into us this morning, God, about what it means to be called a Christian, God. It goes beyond just it's easy said than done. We have to live it out. We have to show it. We have to be that little you in the flesh. That means when we see someone in need, we do all we can to help them. We don't want to be known by those terrible things of intolerant, judgmental. We don't want that to be representing us, God. We can shine our light in a way that is pleasing and good to you. So I pray that as we just start this journey of what it means to be a Christian, God, and claiming that name, I pray this morning, God, right now, we become known by that name. We claim it for ourselves. We take it to the fullest. We don't let it just be a term to represent a group of people or a nickname, but now it becomes something more. It transforms into something bigger. So I thank you so much for everybody that's in here this morning, God. Just guide them, protect them, keep them safe until we meet again.